Email us at cityvisions@kalw.org, post a comment at the KLW website, or tweet us at cityvisionskalw. So why don't let's talk a little bit more about the research that Doctors Verdin and Rando are involved. Let's start with you, Dr. Rando. You mentioned stem cell research. So tell us about in a layman's way of understanding how you're looking at stem cells as a way towards longevity, increasing the lifespan, but also delaying or deferring age-related diseases.
Our interests really stem from the idea that stem cells are important for maintaining and repairing tissues, and that's what they do. And that's true in tissues throughout the body, whether it's the skin or the blood or the bone or muscle. We study a lot in skeletal muscle. And yet, over time, these stem cells lose their ability, in general, to maintain and repair tissues. So with that question, we've begun to ask, why is that? And is there anything we can do to restore youthful properties to stem cells throughout the body? Our current research really does focus on that question, is what is it that's present, for example, in young stem cells that's not present in old stem cells? And through our research, one of the things that we found is that if you expose old stem cells to the circulating environment, namely what's in the blood from young animals, you can make old stem cells behave like young stem cells and maybe even turn them into young stem cells. So there's this idea that there are circulating factors in young people that are actually promoting this kind of youthfulness of the tissues and the cells, that if we can harness that, we could potentially develop therapies that would restore youthfulness to old tissues from old individuals and old stem cells. We have evidence from this in mice that this can work, and there's ongoing research now looking at this even in humans.
So, and have you figured out what is in the secret sauce, as it were?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. So we have not. We and others have found things that change in the blood with age. There are proteins that go up, proteins that go down. We've analyzed them individually. Some of them seem to have these kind of pro-youth effects or pro-aging effects, things that go up with age. So the idea might be that one could identify a cocktail of factors that are important for promoting youthfulness, or a cocktail of factors that you might want to eliminate or suppress that promote aging, as a way of restoring healthfulness to aged tissues.
And this I've seen it written as this is termed sort of young blood, literally. And that there are some experiments out there are trying to really kind of how do you expose older stem cells, older tissues, older people to young. I mean, the science fiction aspect of this can be, you can go off and imagine some movies that would emanate from this concept. But you're really literally talking about that there are factors circulating in the blood of animals, humans that are younger than those that are older, that somehow seem to be signaling things to continue to stay on course, or repressing things that would shut him down, basically.
That's right. I mean, it's not that different from typical endocrinology in terms of thinking about, there's insulin in the blood, and yet some people need more insulin. Now, this is quite a larger scale in thinking about the whole biology of aging, but it may be that there are components of the blood that are controlling some of these fundamental processes that lead to cell and tissue aging, and that perhaps that can be harnessed and develop therapies to restore youthfulness to individual tissues. We think of this, again, as stem cell biologists, as a way of, for example, promoting healing of wounds. So stem cells heal skin wounds, but we do that much better when we're young than when we're old. But what if we could administer a compound or a set of compounds that would allow old tissue to repair well? You could increase bone healing or skin incision healings in older people to help them recover more quickly from injuries.
So using that trunk versus branch model that you were talking about earlier, Eric Verdin, with the stem cell piece, where are you at? What are you envisioning at this point? Is it regenerating end organs or tissues and sort of replacing parts as they fail? Are you looking even further upstream at this point?
So we're looking upstream. That is, the idea is if we can understand these very early events that are leading to these multiple changes that we see in cells and tissues, that we could intervene at that level to restore cells back to back to the trunk. So if cells and tissues are moving along this pathway from a young state to an old state, we're trying to move them back along that pathway.
Okay. Eric Verdin, what research can you bring to us?
So we are interested in the interaction between diet and nutrition and health span and longevity. And so this work is based on two key observations. One is actually one of the oldest observations in the field of aging from the 1930s. It was the demonstration that if you decrease the calorie intake in mice and rats, you actually can increase lifespan, and sometimes dramatically, up to 40% by a 30% reduction. So this was one of the earliest findings actually in the field of aging, and it suggested that the organism is able to sense the amount of nutrient that it receives. Now, the counterpart to this